This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back, everyone. If you or somebody you know is challenged by an autoimmune disease, I don't have to tell you that it's life-changing. It's on your mind all the time. It's the new you in some regards once you're diagnosed and you try to find ways to navigate through life. Did you ever imagine that there is somebody that can coach you through that process? Somebody who's very familiar with autoimmune challenges. And we are going to talk with her today. I didn't even know this existed. I think it is wonderful. I know people in my life, even in my family, that have autoimmune challenges. And she's not just anybody getting certified as a coach. She runs deep with this, certified as a health and life coach. She's certified as a health and wellness coach, and so much more with the American Association of Christian Counselors, trained PQ coach for positive intelligence, certified functional nutrition informed professional, and autoimmune intervention mastery course certification as well. I just keep going on here. Let's just introduce her. So wonderful to have Cheryl Patterson join us today on the program. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Steve. I'm so happy to be here to be able to talk with you and your audience about coaching for autoimmune diseases.
I have to honestly tell you, I've spoken with, and I mean this literally, thousands of coaches in all different categories, from executive coaches to men's coaches to on and on and on. This is a first for me, an autoimmune, call it disease coach.
Yes.
I don't normally ask this question right away, but I'm going there. What brought you here? Why did you decide to be a coach to help people with autoimmune challenges?
It's a perfect question. And it leads me into what I want to say. And that is, first of all, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 50 years. Okay. So I just turned 72. So I went
you
to
look
Ohio
amazing.
State
I gotta say,
well,
you look amazing.
I gotta it's amazing when you're on a computer. You don't see all the lines. You don't see the wrinkles like if we were standing in my driveway in the sunlight. So it's amazing to be on a computer. You always look better. But anyway, yes, I'm 72, and so 50 years as a nurse. And my clinical specialty areas are orthopedics, pain management, and physical rehab. Worked in those areas, those 50 years, in different ways: research, clinical roles, management, and administration. But I also have two autoimmune diseases. So when I was 12 years old, I developed plaque psoriasis, which is scales all over your body. I was 12 years old and I had psoriasis all over my chest, my back, my scalp, around my ears. And if you can imagine, that was in 1965. And there were no treatments for psoriasis back then like there are now. So going through teenage years with psoriasis and dealing with that was a real lesson in how to deal with a disease that you have no control over. Then when I was 34 years old, I was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, after my second child was born. So again, MS is a totally different autoimmune disease with different symptoms completely. So having gone through my life with these two autoimmune diseases, working in healthcare, it was time for me to retire, but I can't do nothing. I can't just retire and do nothing. I have to do something with my life. So as I was approaching retirement age, my niece was becoming a coach and other people I knew were becoming coaches. So I looked into this area and it just seemed like it was just calling for me to use my autoimmune personal experience, my professional experience and knowledge to become a coach to help people with autoimmune diseases. And so that's how I came into all of this. So it's been a couple years now. I've been coaching people with autoimmune diseases of all kinds.
Wow. My older daughter is a nurse and has some autoimmune challenges. And it's taken her years to figure this all out. Even with a nursing background, it's not easy. It's not easy.
It's not.
And I can't imagine, you heard, yeah, we're talking people with medical backgrounds, and it's still challenging, which
Right.
brings me to why you would need a coach for something like this, especially since there's so many different aspects of autoimmune challenges in our lives.
Exactly. And that's what's so interesting about this area, because there are over 100 different autoimmune diseases, and
Mm.
these diseases affect different parts of the body. So, autoimmune diseases are where your immune system attacks yourself, auto meaning self. So your immune system is probably the largest system in your body. Your immune system is there as your first line of defense against infectious diseases, to heal wounds. Um, but for some reason, and we don't know yet because there's no cure, for some reason, the body misidentifies some type of tissue or some organ system as a foreign invader and attacks it. So, depending on which disease you have, there will be different systems, bodily systems, or tissues involved. So, like psoriasis, that involves your skin. Crohn's disease is your GI tract. MS is your nervous system. Rheumatoid arthritis are the connective tissues around your joints, and on it goes. So, over 100 different diseases. And each one of these diseases is going to have different symptoms or challenges
Mm.
depending on what tissue is involved. And so, as you're dealing with the limitations, the symptoms, the problems the disease creates, and again, depending on your gender, what kind of job you have, even where you live, there are different challenges you have to deal with. And there are different ways to deal with those challenges. And that's what a coach helps you do, is deal with those limitations or the challenges to live the best life that you can.
I can't imagine somebody coaching somebody else through the journey of autoimmune situations effectively without being a medical professional. It's great if somebody wants to help somebody else out, been there, maybe they've been there, done that, and all of that. I get it. Okay, there's some empathy and understanding that goes along with that, but the medical aspect of it, like,
Hmm.
whoa, it's huge.
Exactly. And
Mm.
that's why I think it's one of my strengths to have the abundant experience that I do in healthcare, along with my own personal experience.
And then
Yes.
there's that. You could just be somebody that has medical experience and wants to help, and maybe you got a good background on autoimmune challenges, but you walk the walk and talk the talk.
Mm.
What's the difference between somebody getting cured and somebody healing? Is there a big difference in that?
Oh, wow. That is a perfect question. That is a perfect question. Because when I do presentations about autoimmunity and autoimmune diseases, I talk about a cure versus healing, because we don't have a cure, because we don't know the cause of these autoimmune diseases yet. We're getting closer. I mean, there's just
Any of them?
you know, none of them. We don't know. We don't have a cure yet. We're getting very close
Wow.
to some of them, because just even in the past 5 years, the amount of research that's been done about the neurological system, as we look at diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's involving the brain, we are getting more information about diseases like MS. So we've got some drugs that help modify the disease. We don't have cures yet. But what I talk about with clients and everybody is the difference between a cure versus healing. Currently, there are no known causes or cures. However, healing involves what happens in different domains of your life, ways to experience repair and build strength to overcome your challenges and obtain your maximum level of wellness. And when I coach, I identify 7 different domains of life. Now, when you talk with different coaches and different wellness providers, functional medicine providers, they will have different domains. For me, I have 7. There's the physical domain, the mental, cognitive, your emotional domain, vocation, and your work. That's a separate domain. What kind of work do you do?
Hmm.
And how does that relate to your disease? Your financial and money mindset domain, that whole area. Your social and relationships domain with family, with spouse, with friends and coworkers. And then of course, spiritual domain, your faith. So those 7 domains are what I deal with in my coaching programs, and they're each affected differently depending on your symptoms, your problems that are caused by your disease, your age, and your gender.
Is it my understanding, and I want to know if this is accurate, that more women have autoimmune diseases than
Yeah.
men?
Thank you very much. 80% of autoimmune diseases occur in women.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big wow. Now, decades ago, when we were very early in the stages of research on autoimmune diseases, physicians were recognizing right away that these things were happening more often in women. All of the different autoimmune diseases were occurring more often in women. And so as we got into the 1950s and 60s and 70s, more and more research was being focused on why that is. And now even more research is being focused on why it is that these diseases occur more often in women. And so, of course, a lot of it does have to do with female hormones and different stages of hormone transition that women go through. So there's more and more research, and we've discovered some theories that are out there, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions. There are a few autoimmune diseases that do occur more often in men. One of them is ankylosing spondylitis, and that's where the vertebral bodies of your spine begin to automatically fuse. Ankylosing means fusion. So they begin to fuse together so that you lose your ability to bend your spine. And you can imagine what that does to your mobility and your physical functioning is if your spine is fusing
Sure.
together. Another one is type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is the kind of diabetes that requires insulin injection. Type 2 diabetes, is the kind of diabetes you can control with medications and with diet, and you can maybe cure it yourself. But with type 1 diabetes, that occurs more often in men. And then there's some GI problems that occur more often in men than women. But it is very interesting to note how these diseases do happen more often in women.
Wow. The other thing is here, we mention all these different medical situations, but for those that don't know, they might not have connected with autoimmune. Like, for example, diabetes,
Right. Exactly.
right?
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
that it's autoimmune disease is an umbrella, but speaking with you today, Cheryl, I realize it's a way bigger umbrella than I ever imagined.
Yes.
What about genetics? Based on, your research studying people you work with, how much did genetics come into play with this?
Yes. And again, as we began to, map the genome and we could finally do that, that opened up a whole area of research to be able to look at what it is about the genes in people with certain diseases. And then, it was one thing to map the gene, but it's another thing to learn about the expression of certain genes. That whole area of research opened up. Epigenetics. Maybe you've had some speakers on your show that have talked about epigenetics, which has to do with the genes and whether or not they're expressed or silenced. And certain kinds of environmental toxins or behavioral kinds of things, even trauma. You've probably had speakers on your show that talk about trauma and how it affects the physiology.
Oh, every
Those,
day.
yeah.
I am not even kidding it. That is a, common theme. And most people, when they hear that T word, I don't have any trauma in my life. Saying it now, you
Right.
have thousands of traumas in your life. A lot of them
Yes,
are smaller from your childhood, but you have them.
I know. And I'm certified in that. I've done a lot of teaching on that. I'd love to do a show on that.
Mm.
So as they uncover these things that do affect the expression of the genes that we have, we begin to understand what leads to some of these diseases appearing clinically, where all of a sudden now you've got these symptoms, and there are genetic lines where they can see that, for example, my children would have an 8 times greater chance of developing MS than the general population. Okay, are they going to develop it? No one knows.
Hmm.
You just, but yes, there is some genetics linked with this.
Sure. And you never know. I mean, I have I've dealt with skin cancer for, I don't know, 25 years.
Hmm.
And my mom had it, my aunt had it, my dad had it. I have a twin sister. No issues at all, at all. And it's like, yeah, you never know. You just you don't know. But I sense you also, Cheryl, and what you offer, um, recognize energy and how energy plays a big role in a lot of this.
Yes, because when we talk about some of the most common problems that people with autoimmune diseases experience, and again, across the board with all different tissues or bodily systems involved, there are certain common problems that everybody with autoimmune diseases experience. And the number one problem that people list and mention is fatigue or lack of energy.
Hmm.
So that's why you're seeing so much on the internet about energy
Yeah,
and fatigue. And so that certainly is an area that I address with the people that I work with, are things that you do to minimize fatigue and maximize your energy. And I do have a 10-week Power Up Energy coaching program that I do. But in my 16-week personalized autoimmune coaching course, we address that issue, of course, because it's the top complaint. But the other one is that because these autoimmune diseases are unpredictable as to whether they're going to progress and get worse, or whether these symptoms are going to come and go on any given day. So the unpredictability of
mm,
how it's going to progress in time, or on any given day when you wake up, what kind of symptoms are you going to have? That produces worry. So worry and concern about the unpredictability of the disease is another area
that's a
that we
big
address.
area.
And
Thank you
it
for
is.
identifying that, because then somebody's always writing on the preparing for the worst. Stress. Now you've got stress introduced in that. Now I'm going on vacation. I've got a flight coming up. What if I get a flare up? Oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with that 30,000 feet up? And then, on vacation in another country, going hypothetical here, but you need a coach for that alone.
And
Wow.
that's one of the topics that I talk about. And I've done some short videos that I've posted on LinkedIn about traveling with an autoimmune disease. What are the kinds of things you can do to kind of be ready for things that may happen when you're away from home, traveling in Europe or in
Mm,
Asia, and now you've got this symptom or this problem. And so I address that as well. And then, of course, there's pain and physical issues that occur. And depending on the symptoms, the system that's involved, whether it's your GI tract or whether it's your neurologic system or whether it's your bones and joints, you're going to have different kinds of pain and different kinds of physical symptoms and issues that limit you and cause problems. And then there are employment related issues.
mm.
Again, depending on the disease you have and how it limits you, whether it limits you cognitively with periods of brain fog or whether it limits your standing ability. So that, some places where you work, there's a lot of standing meetings where everybody's standing for a half hour or more, and you can't do that,
Mm.
or just long periods of sitting, or other kinds of physical issues, depending on what the nature of your job is. You may have to look at some employment related issues as relates to your autoimmune disease and the work life balance that goes along with that, you know, so that you can enjoy your home life and still perform as well as you want to on the job. So that's a whole area that I talk about with people.
Wow. There's so much going on here. And based on what you're saying, Cheryl, I'm viewing this as many jump down a rabbit hole, and understandably so, and potentially maybe come into a victim mentality. It's like, why do I have to deal with this? Why me? Why? We all do
Mm-hmm.
it at some point in our
Mm-hmm.
lives. I view
Yes.
you
Yes.
as that person standing above the rabbit hole, reaching your hand in, pulling them up, getting them back on on solid ground, grounding
Yes.
them, but then helping them reach goals. And maybe they're little goals along the way where they can feel that they're progressing in a positive direction, if that makes sense.
Does make sense. And the interesting thing about this too, as I've taken these various coaching courses, um, and especially the Institute for Women-Centered Coaching, helps coaches understand that when you sit down and ask people what goals they want for their life, they really aren't able to identify goals on their own. They really need some prompting to dig deeper. So when a coach just says to a new client, so what do you want your goals to be? It isn't that simple. They'll come up with something that maybe has been on their mind for a while, but there's a lot more that's deeper. There's a big why. Is that important to you? And as you
Mm.
dig deeper into the why that goal is, you realize there's something more to that. There's a different goal or a different objective that will take them into a better life that they didn't even imagine. So it's like uncovering some insights. It's wonderful if you arrive at some insights in your coaching, but unless you take it to the next step and do some things that are operational to make those insights create some transformation in your life, the
Sure.
insights are nice. They're interesting. It's nice. Now you have more insight. What are you going to do with that insight to now operationalize it so that you change your identity and transform your life into something so much better that you didn't even realize you had out there waiting for you?
It's amazing I'll call them the pillars that you mentioned before. I think there were seven that you
Yes,
identified.
yes, yes,
The majority of them really apply to all of us, not just those dealing with an autoimmune disease.
exactly.
And they're fantastic. Just and I appreciate you bringing those up.
Yes, thank you. Yes, they are. They're important in all of our lives, for sure.
What's the starting point for somebody that is going through autoimmune challenges, and also for somebody who may be connected with somebody who is maybe a caregiver, maybe a spouse, partner, whatever it is? How do they connect with you, and how does that process go?
Well, I do offer a free, no pressure at all, but just a 45-minute discovery call. And I'm glad you brought it up because sometimes it's not the patient or the person with the condition. Sometimes it's a family member, a spouse, or an adult child, or someone else, a coworker even, who recognizes that somebody's struggling with their autoimmune disease in some way, and wants to help them find some way to achieve a better level of health and wellness. So either the patient themselves or the client or the family member can go to my calendar, which is calendly.com. You know, everybody's using Calendly these days. So it's calendly.com/nursecap75/45. And then they just schedule this call where we talk about what is their disease, what are the problems they're experiencing, what is the type of work that they do. And then we talk about my coaching programs and what I do in my coaching programs. And if they decide that it sounds good to them and they want to work on these different strategies that I have, then we just go ahead and enroll them and schedule the program. Now, I do one-on-one coaching, but I also do group coaching. And women like to do that more than men. You know, women like to get in groups and talk with each other. And it has an added benefit of talking with other people who are dealing with their own challenges and issues. And that's
Oh,
helpful too.
100%. I'm in a men's group, been there about a year and change, and we do community service leadership and exactly what you said. And you realize you're not alone. Others are
Yes,
going through stuff, and you
yes,
help each other, making suggestions and maybe things you didn't even realize. And I think at the very least, with the 45-minute introductory coaching session that you offer, that because of your medical background, somebody may even get some nuggets of insight, that
yes.
even, maybe not on the coaching level, but even medically, like, oh, I didn't even realize that, I could be doing that. I should be doing that based on whatever disease I might be dealing with. Love it.
Right. And I want to offer my website too,
Sure.
which is lifeenhancementcoaching.org. Again, lifeenhancementcoaching.org. If take a look at my website because I've got a lot of information there about my coaching programs, and I've got some blogs on there, a lot of different blogs that talk about different topics and issues. And there's links to my calendar throughout the website. So you can just click on the link to my calendar and schedule a 45-minute session with me.
Wonderful talking with you today, Cheryl. Thank you for bringing it to the forefront that somebody does this kind of work. It's so important. It's like a no-brainer.
Thank you.
because the autoimmune disease is life-changing. And sometimes we don't know how to walk that journey. And you can't always find this stuff online, and you need to talk with people to help you. And you get it. You get it on the coaching level, on the medical level, and also on the autoimmune level because you've experienced it.
My life mission.
Yep.
It's my passion. It's been my life mission and my passion my whole life to work with people.
Fantastic.
In these ways.
Yeah. So much to talk about next time we get together. Lots of different ways we can help people, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.